The Muratorian Fragment is one of the earliest known lists of New Testament books, discovered by Ludovico Antonio Muratori in the 18th century. Found in a manuscript at the Ambrosian Library in Milan, this ancient text likely dates from the late 2nd or early 3rd century CE. Muratori describes the manuscript as nearly 1,000 years old, written in large square letters. Despite some errors in copying, he recognized its importance, hoping it would be well received due to its highly venerable antiquity. Scholars have debated the fragment's authorship, with some attributing it to Caius, a Roman presbyter from the late 2nd century. While this remains uncertain, most agree on its antiquity and importance in understanding the early development of the New Testament canon. The fragment discusses various books now in the New Testament, omits some, and includes others not in the current canon. It also mentions some non-canonical works, accepting some for private reading while rejecting others. Despite some textual issues and scholarly debates, the Muratorian Fragment remains a key document in the study of early Christianity and the formation of the New Testament canon.
The Muratorian Canon, or headless fragment of an unknown author on the canon of sacred scriptures. However, to those who were present, he placed it as follows. Third, the Gospel book. Second, Luke. This Luke, a physician, after the ascension of Christ, was taken by Paul as almost a student of law according to his own opinion. However, he did not see the Lord in the flesh, and as he was able to ascertain, he begins to tell from the birth of John. Fourth, the Gospel of John, from the disciples. Encouraged by his fellow disciples and bishops, he said, "Fast with me today for 3 days, and let us share with each other what has been revealed to each of us." That same night, it was revealed to Andrew from the apostles, that John should write everything down in his own name, with everyone recognizing it. And although the beginnings of the Gospel books teach various things, it makes no difference to the faith of believers, since all things about the birth, passion, resurrection, conversation with his disciples, and his dual coming, first in humility, as it is despised, and secondly in royal power, which is to come, are declared in all by one principal Spirit. Therefore, is it any wonder that John so consistently brings forth these things even in his letters, saying about himself, "What we have seen with our eyes, heard with our ears, and touched with our hands, this we write." Thus he professes to be not only a witness but also a listener and writer of all the Lord's wonders in order. However, the Acts of all the apostles are written in one book. Luke very comprehensively to Theophilus, includes everything done in his presence, as he also clearly describes Peter's suffering individually, but mentions Paul's departure from the city to Spain. The writer of all the Lord's wonders in order declares, the Acts of all the apostles are written under one book. Luke, most excellent Theophilus, comprehends them, because each event was done in his presence, just as he clearly declares the martyrdom of Peter, but also the departure of Paul from the city to Spain. The letters of Paul, from which place and for what reason they were directed, declare their intentions themselves. First of all, forbidding division of heresy to the Corinthians, then circumcision to the Galatians. To the Romans he wrote more extensively, indicating that Christ is the beginning of the Scriptures. It is necessary for us to discuss each of these, as the blessed Apostle Paul, following the order of his predecessor John, writes only by name to 7 churches in this order: first to the Corinthians, second to the Ephesians, third to the Philippians, fourth to the Colossians, fifth to the Galatians, sixth to the Thessalonians, seventh to the Romans. Although he repeats to the Corinthians and Thessalonians for correction, it is still recognized that there is one church spread throughout the world. And John, in the Revelation, although he writes to 7 churches, says to all, indeed to Philemon 1, and to Titus 1, and to Timothy 2, for affection and love, in honor of the Catholic Church, in the order of ecclesiastical discipline, they are sanctified. There is also said to be one to the Laodiceans, another to the Alexandrians, falsely attributed to Paul to support the heresy of Marcion, and many others that cannot be received into the Catholic Church. For mixing gall with honey is not suitable. The letter of Jude, and the 2 of John mentioned above, are held in the Catholic Church, and the wisdom written by the friends of Solomon in his honor. We also accept the revelation of John and Peter, which some of our people do not want to be read in the Church. The Shepherd was very recently written in our times in the city of Rome by Hermas, with Pius, the bishop of the city of Rome, his brother, sitting on the chair, and therefore, it should indeed be read. But it cannot be publicly proclaimed in the Church to the people, neither being completed among the number of the prophets, nor among the apostles, until the end of times. But of Arsinoe, or Valentinus, or Miscites, we receive nothing at all, who also wrote a new book of Psalms for Marcion along with Basilides, the founder of the Asian Cataphrygians.